Hello and welcome to the No One Asked You podcast. I'm reading The Wheel of Time for the first time and sharing the experience with you. This is One Good Turn, The Eye of the World, and today I'm covering Chapter 43. We get quite a history lesson, which is nice. I'm glad to learn that teleportation in this world comes with a limiting factor. A good reason not to always be using it. We get some very scary dreams and some interesting symbolism. We'll get to that one. And we kind of gloss over the planning stage, which I'm glad that we had the planning stage at all. And I didn't feel like I needed to hear the nitty-gritty of, okay, we need rations for 3 days kind of a thing. Didn't think it was necessary, but I'm glad to know that they were all involved. It picks up immediately from the end of last chapter with Loyal saying they can't really use the way or they'll all die. There's a long moment of silence. No one wants to speak. Eventually, Rand asks why. Good. I think he has a right to know. I also think he has a right to decide if he's willing to take the risk, which at this point I'm exceptionally glad that Moraine offers the choice as well. It puts Moraine in a really weird position where it's like she hadn't really given him much of a choice. I mean, for them, it wasn't even much of a choice in the sense that they knew it was something they had to do. They accepted doing it to help their home, going with Moraine, I mean. But here she's offering them the choice, and I have to wonder, what if they did say no? Would Moraine feel obligated to stay with the three of them then? Or would she go to the Eye of the World without them and just be like, okay, well, I think that's more important than you three? I don't think that would be the case. It doesn't really matter. They all agree anyway, but it's interesting to think of. Loyal is a bit nervous to answer. There's a cat, and Moraine indicates that Loyal should be the one to tell the story, since it is his knowledge. But she does make her argument. The ways are the only path to safety for us. The only path to forestalling the Dark One, if only for a time, but the telling is yours. Loyal is still uncomfortable, but he begins. During the time of madness, while the world was still broken, the earth was in upheaval, and humankind was being scattered like dust on the wind. We Ogier were scattered too, driven from the steading into the exile and long wandering, when the longing was graven on our hearts. We get a brief exchange that I thought was humorous in which Loyal basically says, hey, I know you told me to be brief, but this is not a brief story, so I need to get into all the details. It is of the others I must speak now, those few Ogier who held in their steading, while around them the world was tearing apart. And of the Aes Sedai, the male Aes Sedai, who were dying even as they destroyed the world in their madness. He goes on to basically say that the male Aes Sedai, who were not yet so corrupt, found their way to steadings where, as I recall from the Perrin Egwin story, are places completely cut off from the one power. And to be cut off from the true source, rather, was to also cut them off from the taint. So these male Aes Sedai were able to exist for a time, in theory, indefinitely, but they could not ultimately stand to be apart from the source for so long, which I totally get. I really do. I'm trying to think of a real world example, but none are coming to mind right now. But I get it. I imagine it's like what having a ghost limb feels like, in a way, maybe. And so the male Aes Sedai decided to leave, hoping that by the time they left, the taint would have been gone. And Moraine interjects here to say, some in Tarvalon claim the Ogier sanctuary prolonged the breaking and made it worse. Others say that if all those men had been allowed to go mad at once, there would have been nothing left of the world. I am of the blue Aja, Loyal. Unlike the red Aja, we hold to the second view. Sanctuary helped to save what could be saved. So, great, we know that Moraine is in the blue Aja. I guess I kind of took it for granted that she wouldn't have been part of the red. She certainly seems adversarial to Aleda, or at least it kind of seemed that way to me in the previous chapter. So the blue seem, I'm guessing, to be the more compassionate, if that's the right word for it, thoughtful group, and the red seem to be the more militaristic group. Loyal goes on. Before they left, the Aes Sedai wanted to do something to thank them, the Ogier. And it's at this point that I asked a question that Egwene will more or less ask in a little while. I ask myself, what can they possibly do to thank them? Like, I know this is a story about teleportation, so I'm like, how can you do that if you're cut off from the power? And then it was another short little walk to, okay, well, however they did it, it would have been done with the one power, and that's why teleporting is dangerous, because it's tainted. So I feel like I was quick on the draw with that one. They gave a gift. The ways. Enter a waygate, walk for a day, and you may depart through another waygate, 100 miles from where you started, or 500. Time and distance are strange in the ways. Different paths, different bridges lead to different places, and how long it takes to get there depends on which path you take. It was a marvelous gift, made more so by the times, for the ways are not part of the world we see around us, nor perhaps of any world outside themselves. And he goes on to explain that the Ogier particularly appreciated this gift because it meant they wouldn't have to travel the world, where men still fight like animals, and there was no breaking within the ways, which was interesting. So it's sort of an alternate dimension type situation. The last Aes Sedai to leave gave the elders a key or a talisman, which could be used to make more ways, or more waygates, rather. The Ogier don't really understand it, and the Aes Sedai have forgotten it. The exile ended for them, the Ogier, and as those Ogier who had been gifted by the Aes Sedai found a steading where Ogier had returned from the long wandering, they grew away to it. With the stonework we learned during the exile, we built cities for men and planted the groves to comfort the Ogier who did the building, so the longing would not overcome them. To those groves ways were grown. There was a grove and a waygate at Mafal Dadaranel, but that city was razed during the Trolloc Wars. He goes on to describe the city having no stone left standing, and Moraine asserts that the waygates are all but impossible to destroy and that there are still people at Faldara. It's not the big city it once was, but they are there. And this is when we get to Egwene asking that question that I was able to deduce, which is to say they basically stepped right outside the steading, used the power to do it, and therefore it's tainted. Although she does ask in a nice enough way. She asks the question and then follows it up with, I don't know much about what Aes Sedai can do yet. Maybe it's a silly question. I like that bit of humility. Seems a bit rare coming from her. Loyal explains, each steading has a waygate on its border, but outside. Your question is not silly. You've found the seed of why we do not dare travel the ways. No Ogier has used the ways in my lifetime and before. By edict of the elders of all the steading, none may, human or Ogier. He goes on to explain that during the War of the 100 Years, which was 1,000 years ago, the ways began to change. They didn't notice it at first, but slowly but surely it became more apparent. Darkness fell along the bridges. Some who went in were never seen again. Travelers spoke of being watched from the dark. The numbers who vanished grew, and some who came out had gone mad, raving about Machine Shin, the Black Wind. Aes Sedai healers could aid some, but even with Aes Sedai help, they were never the same, and they never remembered anything of what had occurred. Yet it was as if the darkness had sunken into their bones. They never laughed again, and they feared the sound of the wind. So that's ominous and scary, and I kind of fear that none of this group are going to make it out wholly unscathed. It's going to be really annoying for me to read through what happens in there and know, and then watch them all pop out and not remember. There's silence, and Nynaeve makes the excellent comment, "And you expect us to follow you into that? You must be mad!" But Moraine brings up the important point. What other options are there? And reminds her that her presence as an Aes Sedai will offer them some protection. And then Loyal asks why he should break the edict and acquiesce to Moraine's insistent request. Moraine makes her plea, basically saying, we all, human and Ogier and miscellaneous, are at war with the Dark One and must do their part. essentially. The greater part of the world does not even know it yet, and most of the few who do fight skirmishes and believe they are battles. While the world refuses to believe the Dark One may be at the brink of victory, there is enough power in the Eye of the World to undo his prison. If the Dark One has found some way to bend the Eye of the World to his use. So basically, if the Dark One gets the MacGuffin, it's the end of the world. And they are the only ones who know at this moment. It's dark in the room, the fire in the fireplace isn't doing enough to light the room for Rand's taste. Matt asks, why are we so important? Why do we have to go to the Blight? The Blight! And Moraine gets a look upon her that Rand thinks would even cause Morghese to pale. One thing we can do. We can try. What seems like chance is often the pattern. 3 threads have come together here, each giving a warning. The Eye. It cannot be chance. It is the pattern. You 3 did not choose. You were chosen by the pattern, and you are here, where the danger is known. You can step aside and perhaps doom the world. Running, hiding, will not save you from the weaving of the pattern, or you can try. You can go to the Eye of the World, 3 Tavaren, 3 center points of the web, placed where the danger lies. Let the pattern be woven around you there, and you may save the world from the shadow. The choice is yours. I cannot make you go. Which I talked about it at the beginning of the episode, but it's like, what if they did choose not to? Would that be part of the pattern? I'm pretty sure she would conclude that it's definitely the touch of the Dark One on the pattern. But I really am curious what Moraine would then choose to do. Would she go on alone to the Eye to do what she can? Or would she, I assume she's working at someone else's orders, kind of. The Blue Aja. Would she stay with the 3 Tavaren to ensure their safety and continue on, try to find another way to get to Tar Valon? Fortunately, Rand says, I'll go. And he seeks the void. Perrin and Matt agree. And Nynaeve says, I suppose there isn't any choice for Egwene or me either. Big points for them. Moraine nods to her. You are part of the pattern too, both of you in some fashion. Perhaps not Tavaren, perhaps, but strong even so. I have known it since Berlon, and no doubt by this time the Fades know it too, and Baalzamon. Yet you have as much choice as the young men. You could remain here, proceed to Tar Valon once the rest of us have gone. And Egwene refuses. She finds that supposition ridiculous, and stubbornly says, I won't do it, which is great. I don't particularly like Egwene, but she is certainly headstrong and well-meaning, for the most part. Nynaeve affirms the 2 of them will accompany the Aes Sedai, and issues a sort of challenge that Rand doesn't understand. You still need my herbs, Aes Sedai, unless you've suddenly gained some ability I don't know about. And then Moraine looks over to Loyal, and it really all does come down to Loyal, because he's the one that can make this work. And he says, Yes, well, the Green Man, the Eye of the World. They're mentioned in the books, of course, but I don't think any Ogier has actually seen them in, quite a long time, I suppose. But must it be the ways? Moraine nods. Very well, then. I suppose I must guide you. Elder Hammond would say it's no less than I deserve for being so hasty all the time. And thus we get into the planning phase. It really is this short bit. Long into the night they planned. Moraine did most of it with Loyal's advice concerning the ways, but she listened to questions and suggestions from everyone. And Lan joins, and Nynaeve makes a list that they end up giving to Gil to get everything together. Rand is nervous, he's pacing. He sees Matt is worried too. Rand notes resignation in Perrin. And at one point he says, We do what we must, Rand. The Blight. And the yellow eyes light with eagerness. There's good hunting along the Blight. Then he shuddered as if he had just heard what he had said, and once more his face was resigned. So I'm wondering how much more wolfish he's becoming. I know he was cut off from the wolves. I don't think that, stops it altogether. He's certainly in a city, so I don't know. It's a really interesting thought. I'm surprised Rand hasn't asked Perrin about the eyes yet. Maybe it could be that Rand senses the furtiveness and the discomfort, and he's being self-aware about it, but there really isn't any prose that explains any amount of curiosity. And at one point, Rand and Egwene step aside. Egwene. Rand again says, the Dark One's after Matt, Perrin, and I don't want you to be in danger. Go home. Or go to Tarvalon. I don't even care anymore. Just be safe away from me. Which I'm glad he's over the don't go to Tarvalon to become an Aes Sedai part of what this conversation used to be, I suppose. And it is sweet. He waits for her to chastise him, and to his surprise, she smiles and touches his cheek. Thank you, Rand. You know I can't, though. Moraine Sedai told us what Min saw in Bear Lawn. You should have told me who Min was. I thought, well, Min says I am part of this too, and Nynaeve. Maybe I am not Ta'veren, but the pattern sends me to the Eye of the World too, it seems. Whatever involves you, involves me. But, Egwene, who is Elaine? And it really does annoy me that Egwene asks that question. Because it's like, okay, that's what this is all about. You don't want to go save the world. You don't want Elaine around, sinking her teeth into Rand. Is that mean of me to interpret this that way? It's just, tactless isn't the right word. It's a cringe moment. They were having such a nice moment, seemingly about saving the world, and then, no, it's this. Someone else likes him. For a minute he stared at her, then told the simple truth. She's the daughter to the throne of Andor. We get the prose, her eyes seemed to catch fire. And is that disbelief, or is that jealousy? Because Rand's not a liar, and it seems like such a far-fetched thing to believe, but Rand is being honest, and it's like, I could totally see Egwene thinking, how can I compete with a princess? No way it's a princess. And she says, if you can't be serious for more than a minute, Rand al'Thor, I do not want to talk to you. And she rushes off. So yeah, I think she believes it. And Rand is confused and thinks, I need to talk to Perrin. He knows how to deal with women. Jordan really plays this dynamic. He doesn't overplay it at all, but it's probably one of my favorite things in the book. This Perrin thinks Rand is good with women, Rand thinks Perrin is good with women dynamic. Top tier. Master Gil enters. Folks have tried to paint the dragon's fang on the door, but the guards have stopped it. There are white cloaks about. Riots at the gates to the inner city. Gil is exceptionally polite. He always knocks on the door and waits to be let in, even though it's his library. He gets Nynaeve's list of supplies and promises to go out and get all of it. It'll be tough, but he can arrange it. And he's told to make sure they're up before daybreak. And as he parts ways, he gets the last line. We'll leave them watching an empty box, Aes Sedai. Master Gil grinned. I love that sense of, I'm blanking on the word. The concept of they're in it together-ness. Conspiratorial nature. Conspiring. That's the word. Ha-ha! Of it. I do like Gil. I hope he ends up all right. Rand is tired. Matt asks a question about his dad believing that he could possibly save the world. Rand is still a bit nervous about the dagger, understandably so. I don't disbelieve Moraine, but she really didn't give a timeline estimate on how long it'll take before that situation gets worse, and I wouldn't put her past it to understate the danger. They go to sleep with the dagger under Matt's pillow, and he dreams. At first, I thought he knew it was a dream right away, and it didn't seem as horrible as previous dreams, so I had assumed going in that Moraine did something to help. I didn't think it would be, a walk in the park, but I thought he would have a slightly easier time of it in this particular dream, and that is very much not the case. He's thinking to himself, deny it, deny him, and his power fails. And he concentrates on the Queen's blessing, the bed, himself asleep, and so on. Nothing really changes. Eventually he walks through a door, and there are some figurines on a table, and they're all kind of vague, with faces in torment. One is a small man with a wolf beside him, so I guess you could say two if you include the wolf. One is a man with a dagger, and the dagger has a splash of red on it. Gee, I wonder who those two are. And then there's one with a sword, with a heron-marked sword. Gee, I wonder who that is. And then Baalzamon appears.
You've hidden from me too long, but not much longer.
I deny you. I deny that you hold any power over me. I deny that you are.
Do you think it is that easy? But then you always did. Each time we have stood like this, you have thought you could defy me.
What do you mean each time? I deny you. Based off of something Rand says later on in this chapter, I think it is slowly dawning on all of them that this is all about them or him or one of them being the dragon reborn.
You always do. In the beginning, this contest between us has taken place countless times before. Each time your face is different, and your name, but each time it is you.
So it's not necessarily anything we haven't heard from his dreams before, but Rand is really fighting back as far as he can. Liar! Father of lies! Father of fools, if you can't do better than that! Men found you in the last age, in the age of legends, and bound you back where you belong! I imagined what it would mean for Rand to try and lie to the Dark One. I don't know that there's anything inherent in this segment that would indicate that as an option or anything by any means, but it's just a curiosity of mine. What if you tried to engage in discussion with him and trick him? I don't think it's meaningfully possible. He is basically a god. But who knows? Maybe you could at least confuse him in some way. He goes on more evil stuff, talking about stuffing souls into the pit of doom to scream for eternity. And we get this last part.
I offer it one more time, one last time. You can stand above them, above every power and dominion but mine. There have been times when you made that choice, times when you lived long enough to know your power.
That was an interesting line. I mean, one, that this is the last chance for him to come willingly. I'm skeptical of that. Maybe it has to do with the fact that Rand is slightly more informed now than he was before, and that's why maybe the Dark One doesn't have a choice but to let this be the last offer. And then there have been times when you made that choice. Does the Dragon Reborn making that choice not lead to the end of all time? That was the impression I had before this, so I kind of feel like this is a lie. I guess there are times when the Dragon Reborn has succumbed to some degree to corruption, Luce Theron, but it didn't result in the end of the world. I don't know. This is one I have to think more on. Rand calls him a liar and that no Aes Sedai serve him, and we get the very disconcerting line, and I think it is probably something Moraine already knows.
Is that what they told you? 2,000 years ago, I took my Trollocs across the world, and even among Aes Sedai I found those who knew despair, who knew the world could not stand before Shaitan. For 2,000 years, the Black Ajah has dwelt among the others, unseen in the shadows, perhaps even those who claim to help you.
Now, obviously, that's meant to sow mistrust against Moraine, and frankly, lately I really get the sense that Moraine isn't being entirely honest, and it is going to be Moraine's fault when Rand and the others don't feel as if they can trust Moraine. It's not going to be Baalzamon's fault because the best lies are just restructured truths. And it only serves to make the liar, Moraine, untrustworthy. Now, it's like there are some things that it's probably not Rand's business to know, or it might be something that he's not ready yet to know, but the dodging and weaving from the Aes Sedai really, I think there's a reason the Aes Sedai just aren't generally trusted. Baalzamon tries to get him to kneel, but Rand keeps trying to deny him. We get a trippy segment where he's like falling and bumping into tables and tumbling. There's sound in his ears. He's screaming, "No!" And there are shouts, "Die, die, 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 die." Very scared. He's like swirling in a whirlpool, and then he falls out of bed, thumps, and wakes up. He leans over and hears that Mat is speaking in his sleep, "Deny you, deny you, deny you," and then moans. Rand goes to wake him up, but he wakes up right then anyway. And oh, poor Mat. Poor Mat. He touched one of the figurines, and the figurine turned into him. And, well, I'll read the passage. He knows who I am, Rand. I picked up the one with the dagger and he said, "So that's who you are." And when I looked again, the figure had my face. My face, Rand. It looked like flesh. It felt like flesh. Light helped me. I could feel my own hand gripping me like I was the figure. Rand tells him to keep denying him. Matt says he kept talking about a war 1,000 times before. Rand says, "He said the same thing to me." "I don't think he does. I don't think he knows which of us... ... Then he thinks, which of us what? He's so close. I think he knows. I think deep down he suspects. That must be what this passage means. He gets up from the floor and he sees a splinter of wood stuck in his palm, a thick splinter, which he pulls out. Finally, he had it, and a sharp yank pulled it free. With a grunt of disgust, he dropped it, but the grunt froze in his throat as soon as the splinter left his fingers. It vanished. The wound was still there in his hand, though bleeding, and he goes to wash it off. And I don't know much about Jesus, but I feel like this is Jesus imagery. I think the word is stigmata. When he was on the cross and his hands being nailed to the cross, I think it's referencing that. So that's where my mind went with this imagery, this moment. And also it speaks to the Dark Ones getting more powerful, because it didn't used to actually make them bleed in the real world. I hope no more ravens peck out his eyes. That would be annoying. Moraine comes in, says, "Good, they're already awake." And Matt thinks they'd only been asleep for an hour. And Moraine's like, "What? It's been 4. And Rand thinks, "Wow, it seemed like minutes in the dream." Moraine realizes that something scary just happened. She asks if it was the dream, and good, I'm glad we're at a point of telling the truth here. Matt says, "He knows who I am. The Dark One knows my face." And Rand shows the bloody hand. And we don't get a response from the Aes Sedai about the Dark One knowing Matt's face, which was annoying. I feel like that is something I would like to know what her opinion on is. But she does some magic, and his wound heals. Rand's wound does. She says, "Time grows very short." And the last line of the chapter is, "He knew she was not speaking of the time for their leaving anymore." Whew. Good chapter. Lots of interesting information. I'm excited to see where we go from here. I assume the rest of the book is getting to the Way, going through the Way, maybe evacuating from the Way. I don't know that there's going to be much time to do anything with the Eye of the World once they get there. I would say that's probably going to be set up for book 2, but book 2's not the one called the Eye of the World, so who can say? Thank you all for tuning in. Have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you next time. Okay, thanks, bye.